They tased him while he knelt at his wife's grave, clutching her folded American flag, whispering her name, because a young officer decided grief looked suspicious. 7 minutes later, 5 military Humvees rolled in, and the town learned exactly who they would just assaulted. A decorated Marine who had buried more brothers than that officer had birthdays. On that day, they tased me while I was still kneeling in front of Sarah's grave. That is how this started. It was a Wednesday morning, cold for Georgia, the kind of chill that bites through your bones even when the sun is out. I had driven 2 hours in my rusted-out Ford truck just to sit with her. My Sarah, my wife of 41 years, my best friend, my North Star. She would have been gone 6 months now. Breast cancer, stage 4. I still had not figured out how to breathe without her. I sat down beside her headstone with my old Marine Corps jacket wrapped around me and a small American flag in my hand, the same one they handed me at her funeral. I did not say much. I never do. Just sat in silence. Let the wind carry my thoughts. I placed the flag gently into the soft earth beside her grave and bowed my head. Then I heard the crunching of boots on gravel behind me. I did not look up. Didn't think I needed to. Sir, you can place unauthorized flags here. Please remove it. It was a voice I did not recognize. Cold. Sharp. I turned slowly to see a young police officer, Sergeant Brett Davis. Later I would learn his name. White, maybe mid-30s, buzz cut too tight like he wanted to look mean. His hand rested on his belt like he was itching to draw something. His partner stood a few steps behind, more relaxed but watching me like I was about to pull out a grenade. I cleared my throat. It is just a flag. For my wife. There is a city ordinance. Unauthorized displays are considered vandalism. It is an American flag, I said gently. She was born here. Died here. I served 30 years for that flag. That does not give you a pass. We have had complaints. You will need to leave. Complaints. From who? There was no one else here but birds and gravestones. I stood slowly, knees creaking, and picked up the flag. I was not angry. Not yet. Just confused. I turned to him, looked him in the eye. She loved this flag. I said, and so did I. I have buried brothers under it. I have watched it burn in the desert and rise again, with blood on it. It means something. His lips curled. You are obstructing public grounds. He reached out. I stepped back. My hand clenched around the small wooden flagpole. Then it happened. Without warning. Without cause. He drew his taser and fired. The barbs struck my chest like a snake bite. My whole body locked. Spasmed. I dropped to my knees with a grunt that ripped from my gut. My face hit the grass. I heard the other officer gasp. Jesus, Brett, he is old. Didn't matter. They pounced, one knee on my back, the other cuffing my wrists behind me. My cheek pressed into the cold mud next to my wife's name carved in granite. I could not even cry, couldn't even speak. My body was not mine anymore. I was just a heap of bones in a jacket that once meant honor. From the side, a voice broke through the ring in my ears. Hey, what are you doing? He did not do anything. A teenager, maybe 16, holding a phone, recording, his voice shaking but firm. You better delete that, kid. Davis barked. The kid did not flinch. No, my dad's a vet too. You do not tase people like that. Davis looked unsure now. His partner stepped back. A shadow of doubt crept across their faces. But it was too late. The damage was done. I lay in the mud. Arms bound, the tiny flag crushed beneath my chest. And all I could think was, what would Sarah say if she saw me like this? They dragged me up roughly and shoved me toward the patrol car. People were starting to gather, 2 women walking their dogs, a man watering flowers at another grave, their eyes wide. Phones raised. Recording. Inside the squad car. The silence was thick. Davis glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Jaw tight. You people think you can just do whatever you want. He muttered. You people. I was not sure what he meant. Veterans. Old men. Grievers. Americans. I did not respond. My head throbbed. My heart too. At the station. They booked me under noncompliant trespassing and resisting instructions. They took my jacket, my wallet, my dignity. It was then that the front doors of the precinct burst open, and everything changed. I did not see it first. I heard it, the crunch of synchronized boots. Heavy, steady, loud. Then the unmistakable voices, orders barked in clipped tones, firm and authoritative. 5 men in desert tan fatigues and 1 woman in full dress uniform marched through like the building belonged to them. They did not knock. They did not ask. They took. The woman stepped forward. African American. Late 40s, Marine ribbons across her chest, medals too many to count. She raised her voice so everyone heard. Where is Gunnery Sergeant Jack Calhoun? Silence. I raised my hand from the bench in holding. She turned. Her eyes landed on me and I saw it. Recognition. Respect. Pain. I am here. I rasped. She nodded once, then turned to the desk sergeant. You are holding a decorated war hero on what charges? He stammered. He was tasing protocol. Flag ordnance. Her voice cut through like steel. Release him. Now. No. Madame. We. She stepped forward, placing her head on the counter. Brigadier General Monica Hayes, Wes. Marine Corps. You want to make this national, son, because I promise you, Ken will eat this alive before lunchtime. Everything froze, the air thick with realization. The front desk officer unlocked the door without another word. They helped me to my feet. My hands still shook from the shock. As they walked me out, the teenager who filmed it stood waiting by the sidewalk, eyes wide with awe. Sir, he said, voice trembling. You okay? I managed a smile. I will be, son. The Marines surrounded me as we walked to the convoy of Humvees parked outside like a battalion had declared war on injustice. Behind us, the station buzzed with chaos. Phones ringing. Officers arguing. But I did not hear any of it. All I heard was Sarah's voice in my head, soft and proud. You always stood tall. Jack. even when they tried to break you. And that is when I knew this was not just about me anymore. This was about every forgotten veteran. And for the first time in months, I felt something like peace. Like maybe, just maybe, I was not kneeling alone. My name is Jack Callahan. I was born in a small town no one visits, raised by a man who did not know how to say, "I love you," unless it was followed by "get in the truck." My mother died when I was 11, and after that, it was just me, Dad, and a house that creaked louder than our conversations ever did. I never wanted glory. I did not enlist to be a hero. I just wanted out of that dying town, out of the silence, out of the weight of a home that stopped feeling like one. I joined the Marines when I was 18. They shaved my head, tore me down, and built me into something I did not know I could be. I served in Desert Storm, came home. Then 9/11 happened. I signed up again, even though Sarah cried the night I told her. She never tried to stop me. She just looked at me with those deep brown eyes and whispered, "Come home to me." And for 15 years of deployments, I always did. Somehow, even when I should not have, they called me Gunner Callahan overseas, not because I was wild or reckless, but because I could shoot the wings off a dragonfly mid-flight if I had to. But when I came back home, they did not call me anything, not even my name. No one tells you this part, the part where the uniform's off, and suddenly you are just another old man walking too slow across a parking lot. The medals do not mean anything at the DEMV. No one salutes you at the grocery store. Your knees ache, your back screams. And the only thing louder than the silence at night is the memory of mortar fire. Sarah was the only one who saw me, the real me, not just the soldier, not just the old man. She saw Jack. She saw my heart when even I could not feel it beating anymore. We had no kids, not by choice. Life just did not grant us that blessing. But she made our little house feel full. There was always something on the stove, always jazz humming low in the kitchen. She grew tomatoes in the backyard and talked to them like they were grandchildren. And every Veterans Day, she would wear red and wait for me by the porch with 2 mugs of cocoa and a flag pinned to her blouse. When the doctor said the word cancer, it felt like someone fired a round straight through my chest. I sat next to her in every appointment, held her hand through every round of chemo. I would be traded places with her in a heartbeat, but the enemy does not always wear a uniform, and this one did not retreat. She died on a Sunday morning, sunlight pouring through the window like God was trying to carry her home himself. I held her hand until it went cold, and I have not warmed up since. That is why I visit her grave every week. That is why I carried the flag. It was not just for her, it was for us, for every promise we made and kept, for every memory we never got to finish. But last week, when those officers threw me to the ground, something in me cracked, not just because they hurt me, but because they did not see me. They did not see a man. They did not see a Marine. They saw a problem to be handled, an inconvenience. And maybe that is what hurt the most. After the Marines picked me up from the precinct, they took me to the VA clinic, not the hospital, just a quiet corner where I could rest while they figured out the paperwork. General Monica Hayes sat with me for hours. She brought me coffee, the good kind. She called Sarah by name, like she would known her, like she respected her. "You still carry her photo?" she asked. I reached into my wallet and pulled out the worn picture. Sarah, age 27, standing in front of a flagpole, wind in her hair, smile bright enough to blind. I handed it to her. She was the only thing that ever made me want to come home, I said softly. The general nodded. You came home for all of us. She promised there'd be an investigation. Promised the footage would reach the right people. But I did not care about charges. I did not want revenge. I just wanted one damn day to sit with my wife in peace. The news caught fire faster than napalm. Within hours, my face was on every screen in America. Veteran Tased at cemetery. Marine assaulted by police while mourning wife. Headlines. Everywhere, but none of them told the story right. None of them knew who I was. They did not know about my father's silence, or the night Sarah said yes under a sky full of stars. They did not know I named our dog Liberty, or that I once gave my last bottle of water to a crying boy in Fallujah. They did not know the real me. But now, maybe they would. Because something had shifted, the general was receiving calls from D.C. Senators, veterans groups were organizing rallies. The American Legion sent flowers to Sarah's grave. And that kid, the one who filmed the whole thing, his name was Marcus. He showed up the next day with his father, also a Marine. They brought me a fresh flag and stood beside me as I placed it again by Sarah's stone. No one's touching this one, Marcus said. Voice firm. I looked at the boy, black, skinny, smart, and I saw the same fire in his eyes I used to have when I first put on the uniform. You did good, son, I told him. Real good. He grinned. We have got your back. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. The world was watching now, and I was not invisible anymore. He thought I was just some nobody. That is the part that stings, not the taser, not the cuffs digging into my wrists, but the look on his face. The certainty in his voice when he said, "You people think you can just do whatever you want." To Brett Davis, I was a problem, not a person. And in his world, problems get handled with brute force and short reports. But the truth is, Brett Davis did not see me, because Brett Davis did not know who he was either. He grew up in Fayetteville, 2 towns over, son of a former cop. His father was hard, mean even. Word around the local VF hall was that the old man used to patrol with a nightstick and a smile that meant trouble. People like that do not raise sons, they raised ticking clocks. Brett was not born cruel. He was born afraid. You could see it behind his eyes if you looked close enough. Fear that someone would challenge him, outshine him, remind him of how small he felt in a world too big to control. So he put on the badge, strapped on a belt with weapons, and started walking like the world owed him obedience. He did not earn respect. He demanded it. From kids. From women. From men like me. But what he forgot is that real respect does not come from power. It comes from presence, from integrity, from the kind of quiet honor that never has to raise its voice. That day at the cemetery, Brett Davis made a choice. He could be listened, could be heard the tremble in my voice, seen the folded flag, connected the dots. But he did not want to see, because if he saw me, he would have to question the person staring back at him, in the mirror every night. When the footage went viral, his name spread faster than mine. Sergeant Brett Davis suspended pending investigation. Officer who tased grieving veteran placed under review. Reporters camped outside his house. His face trended on every platform. But the thing that shocked people was not just what he did. It was how calm he looked doing it. He was not yelling. He was not flustered. He was in control. And that terrified people. Because if a man could be that calm while inflicting pain on someone innocent, what did that say about the system that trained him? Brett tried to fight it. Claimed I was belligerent. Said I raised my voice, that I resisted. But the footage said otherwise. The still shot that broke America's heart was simple. An old man in a Marine jacket, on his knees in the mud, hand clutching a tiny American flag. And standing behind him, taser still drawn, was a man half his age wearing a uniform meant to protect and serve. People started digging. Brett had a record nothing criminal. Just complaints, dozens of them, use of force. Aggressive demeanor. Targeting minorities. They would always been swept under the rug. Until now. Now, every file was reopened, every case re-examined. And Brett, he cracked. He stopped showing up to work. His union tried to shield him, but public opinion is a powerful weapon, more powerful than any gun or badge. They held emergency meetings. Local council members begged for calm, but the streets were not angry. They were awake. See, it was not just about me. It was about everybody who'd been silenced. Pushed aside, told to move along like their grief. Their pain, their existence was inconvenient. I got letters from women who'd been arrested for crying too loud outside courtrooms. From men who'd been fined for placing candles where their sons were shot. From veterans like me, whose medals did not shield them from humiliation. And they all said the same thing. They did not see me. That is what Brett Davis represented: willful blindness. The kind that does not want to see truth, because truth demands accountability. One morning, a reporter caught him outside a grocery store. Brett looked thinner, eyes baggy. He did not yell. Didn't posture. He just whispered, "I did not know who he was." As if that was the point. As if only heroes deserve dignity. But that is the lie, is not it? Dignity is not something you earn, it is something you are born with. Something no one has the right to strip from you. Not with a badge. Not with a law. Not with a taser. The town's mayor issued a public apology. But it was too polished. Too late. So the people spoke instead. They painted murals. They held candlelight vigils at the cemetery, where I once lay cuffed in the mud. They put my wife's name beside mine on banners that read, "Respect all who serve alive or gone." But Brett, he went quiet. Disappeared from public view. Last I heard, he was undergoing mandatory counseling, not by choice, by order. Word is, he is filing for early retirement. Maybe that is for the best, because the truth is, Brett Davis was not the worst man I ever met. He was just the most dangerous kind. A man with a badge who thought respect was something you could take. The first time they told me I could not mourn, I thought I misunderstood. It was 2 months after Sarah died. The cemetery was quiet, just the way she liked it. I brought her roses, yellow ones. Her favorite. I wore my best coat even though the wind bit through it, because she always said, "Show up for the people you love like it is Sunday morning." So I did. I sat on that same bench, a few feet from her grave, and read aloud from a letter she wrote me back in '98 when I was deployed to Kosovo. It was torn at the edges, ink faded from time, but her words still rang clear. "Jack, you keep fighting for what is right. Just promise me you will come home with your heart still open." I was halfway through the letter when a voice sliced through the piece. "Sir, are you authorized to be here?" I turned and saw a woman, early 50s maybe, blonde hair tight in a bun, a clipboard clutched like a badge of honor. Her name tag read, "Cotter Grounds Supervisor." I stood slowly. "It is public grounds. My wife is buried here." She did not smile. Didn't he blink? "This section is closed until after maintenance. There are posted hours. You can just come and go." I looked around. No signs. No tape. No workers. "I am not bothering anyone," I said quietly. "Just visiting. You are in violation." She repeated, "We have had complaints about veterans leaving unauthorized flags, benches being moved, personal items cluttering the area." Complaints. That word again, always floating in the air but never attached to a name. "Are you telling me I can sit with my wife?" I asked. "I am telling you," she said, her voice flattening. "You need permission." I did not argue that day. I just nodded, gathered the flowers, and left. But something about it stuck like a splinter under the skin. Permission to mourn. It was not just the cemetery. It was the parking spot at the Vay that was not big enough for my cane. It was the nurse who rolled her eyes when I could not remember the date. It was the young man at the pharmacy counter who called me sir, but never once looked me in the eye. Somewhere along the line, mourning became inconvenient. Grief became disruptive. I became invisible. But Sarah was not invisible to me. Not her laughter, not her stubbornness when she wanted soup and I made stew, not the way her fingers traced the edges of my scars and called them beautiful. She was the light in a world full of shadows, and every visit to her grave was me trying to keep that light alive. So the next week, I came back with a folding chair, the flag, and the same yellow roses. I set the flag beside her, unfolded the chair, and sat. And that is when the squad car pulled up. I remember thinking, surely not again. I had not even opened my thermos. 2 officers stepped out. One of them was Brett Davis. "You again," he said, his lip curling slightly. I nodded. "Me again. You were told this area requires clearance." "From who?" "My wife. Be smart with me, sir." I should be walked away. Maybe that would be been easier, but I could not. "You know," I said, my voice calm but firm, "I fought in 3 wars. I have carried dying men on my back. I have written last letters home for boys who could not see straight from the blood in their eyes. And now I can even sit quietly and talk to my wife without someone threatening me with a citation. Rules are rules." Davis snapped. "Funny," I said. "You seem real eager to enforce the ones that hurt people, not the ones that protect them." That was when he stepped forward. Too fast. Too close. You need to leave now. I did not move. He reached for my arm. And then click. That sound. The unmistakable click of a phone camera. I turned my head. There, standing near a tree, was Marcus, the same boy who filmed what happened before. His voice rang out strong. Let him mourn. You are on camera. Again. Davis froze. His partner looked away. I stood tall, not defiant. Just grounded. You do not need to understand my grief, I said, but you will respect it. That day, I was not tased. I was not cuffed. But the threat hung in the air like static. And it stayed with me all the way home. I sat at Sarah's old desk that night and pulled out a pen. I began writing down everything: names, dates, words exchanged. Not because I wanted revenge, because I was preparing. You see, it was not just about me anymore. There were others, at the cemetery, at the VA, in silent bedrooms across America, holding folded flags and broken hearts. And if mourning now required permission, then maybe it was time we reminded the world. We never asked for permission to serve, and we do not need permission to grieve. The second those prongs hit my chest, I thought I was dying. I have taken worse. Sure, shrapnel in Fallujah, a concussion outside Kandahar, a cracked rib from an aide in Baghdad. But this pain, it was not just in my muscles. It was not even in the jolt that stole my breath and slammed me to the ground. It was in the betrayal. I heard the electricity before I even felt it. A sharp crack pop like lightning had chosen me out of a crowd. And then I was on my back. Chest heaving, lungs on fire, my arms flailing in slow motion. I felt the world tilt sideways as my vision blurred. The flag, Sarah's flag, was crushed beneath me. And above it all, I heard one clear voice. I got it. I am recording. Marcus. That boy. That brave, stubborn, righteous boy. He did not run. He did not cry. He held his ground. Phone steady, lens open to the truth. I could not speak, but I saw him in my periphery, skinny, maybe 5'6", hoodie pulled tight, phone in both hands. His face was steel. The officers did not even notice at first. Brett Davis and his partner were too busy shouting orders, twisting my arms behind my back, yelling something about noncompliance and public endangerment. I was not a man to them. I was a code, a checkbox, a threat. Get off him. Marcus shouted, "You just tased a Marine." Davis turned, eyes wide. Delete that now. No. Marcus said, stepping back but never lowering his phone. My dad's a vet too. You do not get to do this. Not here, not to him. Bystanders began to gather. One woman gasped. A man in work boots cursed under his breath, and another phone lifted into the air. Then another. The moment became a spark. I was helped up roughly, painfully, and shoved into the back of the patrol car. The door slammed, cold metal against my side. From the back seat, I saw Marcus standing in front of the cruiser, still recording, still holding the truth in both hands. And that is when I knew the story was not mine anymore. It was ours. By the time I was booked into the station, the video had already gone live. Marcus uploaded it to his social media with the caption, "Police taste grieving Marine and his wife S. grave. Share this." It had 10,000 views in an hour, 50,000 by the second. By the time they fingerprinted me, local journalists were calling the precinct asking for comment. By the time they removed the cuffs, Ken had picked it up. And by the time General Monica Hayes walked through those doors, the video had passed 1 million views. The Marines did not come because someone called in a favor. They came because they saw one of their own humiliated and left to bleed in the dirt. They came because honor is not just a word you wear on a patch, it is a bond that never breaks. They came because the footage said everything I could not. And it was not just the footage. It was the audio. You could hear my voice in it. Ragged. Trembling. Gasping the words. "Please, this is my wife." And then silence. And then the taser. And then my body hitting the grass. You could hear Marcus crying out, "What are you doing?" You could hear bystanders saying, "That man did not do anything." It was all there. Unindicted. Undeniable. When they released me, I was told to keep quiet for your own good, but there was no going back now. That night, I sat on my front porch with an ice pack on my shoulder, and Marcus sitting 2 steps below me. He handed me his phone, showing me the numbers. 1.6 million. He whispered, "It is everywhere." I took the phone, watched the video in full for the first time. I did not recognize the man on the screen. Bent, broken, beaten, but in his eyes, I saw something I knew. Defiance, love, and grief wrapped in quiet dignity. "You saved me," I said softly. Marcus shook his head. "You saved yourself. I just made sure they could not lie about it." I chuckled. "You know, in my day, we needed a whole news crew to get this kind of reach." He grinned. "Now you just need a battery and guts." He had both. The next day, news trucks parked outside my house. Veterans I had not seen in years drove in from 5 counties. Some brought their wives. Others brought framed photos of the ones they would lost. They stood in a silent circle around me as I held Sarah's folded flag in my arms and raised it gently above my porch. No words. Just truth. And as the wind caught the fabric, letting it dance in the morning sun, I felt something shift inside me. I was no longer just the man they tased. I was a Marine they recorded, and the world was watching now. For a long time, I believed silence was just part of getting old. You fade, the world speeds up, and one day you realize you are no longer someone people salute or remember. You become the man in the grocery store that everyone walks around, the one who limps a little too slow, talks a little too soft, and mourns a little too long. So after the video went viral, after the news anchors said my name like it meant something, I still did not expect anyone to come. Maybe a few old friends, maybe a call from the VA saying they were reviewing protocols. That is what I braced for lip service. But what came next? That was not lip service. That was a roar. It started with a knock on my door at 6:13. I was up. Of course, old Marines do not sleep in. I opened the door in my bathrobe, and there stood a man in dress blues. Captain Stripes. Posture so straight it made the porch feel like a command center. "Sir," he said. Saluting me, Captain Lewis Henderson, 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines. I have orders to escort you. Escort me where? I asked, half awake, half suspecting a prank. He smiled. Outside. Sir. I stepped out, and the world stopped. 5 Humvees were parked along the street in a tight V formation. Wes. Marine Corps flags flying high in the morning breeze. A crowd had already gathered, neighbors, passers-by, people I would never seen in my life. Some had their hands over their hearts. Others held signs that read, "We see you. Jack in honor has a name." And then came the sound, the rhythmic, thunderous thump-thump of boots on pavement. Marines, maybe 20 of them, marched in perfect unison down my street, stopping only when they reached my steps. "Sir," Captain Henderson said, turning to face me, "this is your convoy. We are taking you to the capital." I blinked. The capital. "Yes, sir. You have been requested to testify before the State Veterans Oversight Committee. But first, there is something we need to do." He held out a folded American flag crisp. "Sharp corners. Clean. For your wife." My knees buckled. They caught me before I hit the ground. That is when I realized this was not about me. It never had been. This was for every forgotten soldier, every folded flag buried deep in a drawer, every widow who sat alone on Memorial Day, every name etched in stone that time tried to erase. As we rode toward the city in the lead Humvee, I stared out the window in silence. People stood along the highways. Some saluted. Others waved. A few wiped their eyes. We were not a parade. We were not politics. We were a reminder. At the Capitol building, I was led through side doors to a special chamber packed with officials, press, and veterans, some in wheelchairs, some with missing limbs, some with nothing more than a ribbon on their lapel and a tear in their eye. They asked me to speak. I had not planned to. I stood behind the microphone and cleared my throat. The room went still. "My name is Gunnery Sergeant Jack Callahan." I began. "Retired U.S. Marine. Served in Desert Storm, Iraq, and Afghanistan. But more importantly, I served next to men and women who gave everything and never got the chance to be heard." I held up the tattered flag they tased me on, unfolded it slowly, laid it on the table in front of me. This flag was in my wife's hands the day she passed. She loved this country. She loved me. And when I placed it by her grave, I did not expect ceremony. I just expected peace. I paused. My voice trembled. They took that from me, not just with a taser, but with disbelief, with indifference, like my grief was something that needed permission. I looked up, but thanks to a boy with a phone, the world saw, and the Marines reminded me that honor never expires, that dignity does not wear out like a uniform. I stepped back. Silence. Then thunderous applause. The committee chair, a soft-spoken woman in glasses, stood and nodded. "Ma. Callahan, on behalf of this state, we apologize. You reminded us what service really looks like." But it did not stop there. After the hearing, veterans came up to me, one by one. They did not say much. They did not need to. A hand on my shoulder, A single word. Respect. A whisper. Semper Fi. And that night, as the convoy took me home, I watched the stars blink over the hills and thought of Sarah. I imagined her smiling. Because the world had heard. And they cared. They finally cared. It was not long after the hearing that the real reckoning began. Not for me. For them. For Brett Davis. The badge he wore was not just a symbol of authority. It was a shield. One he thought made him untouchable. Invincible. Immune to consequence. But what he did not count on was something older. Deeper. And far more sacred than that silver plate on his chest. He did not count on honor. And honor, true honor, does not need a badge to command respect. It does not come from training modules or handbooks. It comes from sacrifice, from courage, from knowing the weight of life and choosing to carry it anyway. When I got the call that the internal affairs investigation had concluded, I did not feel excitement. I did not feel anger either, just an odd, quiet stillness, like watching a storm pass and knowing it did not break you. Sergeant Davis has been removed from active duty pending formal charges. The voice on the phone said, "What kind of charges?" I asked. Assault of a civilian, unlawful use of force, abuse of power. The man replied, "They are pursuing federal review." I thanked him. Hung up. Then I sat on my porch for a long time. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted to remember what justice felt like. The public demanded accountability. Protesters gathered outside the police station for weeks, not angry mobs' families. Veterans, widows, teenagers with signs that read, "A folded flag is not a weapon and grief is not a crime." One by one, people came forward. An elderly woman who had once been threatened for lighting a candle on her daughter's grave. A young man with PTSD who had been detained after crying too loudly in public. A Gold Star father who said Davis had once called his son just another statistic. And just like that, the cracks became fault lines. The mayor tried to stay neutral, claimed it was a matter for the courts. But when the state governor publicly called my case a disgrace to every uniform ever worn, things changed. Suddenly, no one wanted to stand next to Brett Davis, not even his own. The police chief held a press conference, his face pale, his words carefully chosen. We failed. Not just Sergeant Callahan. We failed our oath. That is when I knew the shield was broken. The badge no longer protected injustice. At the police precinct, something remarkable happened. Officers, some young, some seasoned, walked out during shift change and laid their hats on the ground in front of the station. Not in protest of the system, but in protest of what the system had allowed. They knelt in silence for 8 minutes, the same amount of time I would spent pinned to the ground, twitching, gasping, stripped of dignity while clutching Sarah's flag. 8 minutes. That image traveled the country. One of the Marines who helped rescue me, Corporal Ellis, a tall kid from Michigan with a buzz cut and a calm voice, called me later that day. "We do not wear the uniform for medals," he said. "We wear it because we believe in something bigger, but for too long, too many have worn the badge like it makes them bigger than the belief." He paused. "You reminded us what belief looks like. Gunny." That night, I returned to the cemetery, not for drama, for peace. Sarah's grave was just as I left it. Simple. Clean. The grass had grown thick around the base. I brought her new roses white this time. Purity. I sat down and laid the fresh flag beside her. I was not alone. Around me, 3 other veterans stood quietly. One saluted. Another knelt beside his own wife's stone. No words. Just breath. Just presence. And behind us, by the gates, stood Marcus. He would come every week since. "I brought you something," he said. Walking over, he handed me a framed newspaper article. The headline read, "Justice for the Grieving Marine Badge Removed. Honor Restored." I smiled. My hand brushed the glass. Then I set it down beside the flag. "Thank you," I said. He looked at me and whispered, "No. Thank you." Because sometimes it is not about who has the badge. It is about who remembers what it means to carry it. And that day, as the sun fell behind the trees and the cemetery grew quiet again, I felt something I had not felt since Sarah left. Peace. Not because the world changed, but because we did. I never thought I would see my name on a sign. But that is exactly what I saw the next week when I turned down Maple Avenue, the old road that winds behind the church, the one Sarah and I used to walk every Sunday after service. They would take in the crooked old wood post and replaced it with fresh steel. Gleaming. Straight. Brand new. The letters were bold, painted in crisp white across dark green. Callan Memorial Parkway. I pulled over, killed the engine, just stared. And for the first time since Sarah passed, I wept without shame, because for so long I believed the world had moved on, that the town I gave 30 years of silence and blood had forgotten I existed. But they had not. They just needed to remember. The mayor showed up at my house later that afternoon. Not the one who tried to wait out the storm, a new one. Younger, freshly appointed after public outcry, forced a special election. She stood on my porch in a plain navy dress. No entourage. No cameras. I know words do not mean much, she said, but we are not here to erase what happened. We are here to correct it. I offered her a seat. She handed me a manila envelope. Inside was a proclamation official, signed and sealed. The town of Hillstead, Georgia, recognizes Gunnery Sergeant Jack Callahan for his lifetime of service, sacrifice, and resilience. From this day forth, the cemetery park shall be renamed the Jack and Sarah Callahan Memorial Gardens, in honor of love, grief, and the dignity of every American who served. I blinked. Jack and Sarah, I asked. She smiled. We figured. It was never just your story. It was always hers too. That hit harder than any award I would ever been given. A few days later, they held a dedication ceremony. I almost did not go. I am not one for stages or microphones. But Marcus showed up at my door that morning with a clean white shirt and a tie in his hand. "You are going," he said. "We ironed this for you. My mom," he said, grinning. She cried all night watching that hearing. She says, "You are what men are supposed to be." I chuckled. Hope she never saw me trying to parallel park. The ceremony drew hundreds, not just folks from town, but from all across the state. Marines in full dress, veterans in leather vests, medals clinking, kids holding mini flags, Gold Star families holding photos. Some stood, some sat, all bore witness. They had me speak. I kept it short. I did not fight wars to be remembered. I fought so people could live with dignity. My wife lived that way. She died that way. And when they tried to take that from me, you all gave it back. They unveiled a new bench, right beside Sarah's grave. Polished granite, and etched into the stone were 3 simple words: sit, speak, stay. They were Sarah's last note to me, written on a sticky pad next to my morning coffee the day before she passed. The crowd clapped. Some cried. Some just bowed their heads. After the speeches, people approached me one by one. A single mother whispered, "You gave my son courage." A Vietnam vet with missing fingers gripped my hand and said, "We are not ghosts anymore." Even a rookie cop, maybe 22, shuffled up nervously and said, "Sir, I joined the force because of you." That night, I walked the grounds of the newly renamed gardens. Fireflies danced in the warm dusk. The flag waved gently in the breeze. And beside Sarah's headstone, someone had left a note in a child's handwriting. "Thank you for fighting for my future. I will never forget you or your wife. Love, Lily." Age 9. I held that note like it was gold, because it was not in weight, but in truth. You see, I thought my story ended when they pressed that taser into my chest, when I hit the ground with mud in my mouth and a crushed flag in my hands. But that was not the end. That was the beginning of this town remembering not just who I was, but who we all are when we choose honor over fear, truth over silence, and love over convenience. I do not know when the letters started. Maybe it was after the memorial ceremony, or maybe after the video hit 10 million views. But one morning, I opened my mailbox and it was completely full of envelopes. Some were typed, others handwritten in jagged cursive. Some were on yellow notebook paper, others on military letterhead. A few were tear-stained. None were the same, but every single one carried a story. A woman in Oregon wrote, "My grandfather was a Korean War vet. He died alone. I think he would be liked to know someone like you existed." A teenager from Detroit, "We learned about you in school today. I did not know soldiers still hurt after the war ended. I am sorry." Thank you. A man serving overseas, "Sir, I watched your video in the mess tent. The room went quiet. Then we all stood. You reminded us why we wear the uniform." And on they came every day, from all 50 states, from other countries, from people I would never meet, people who had felt forgotten, people who finally felt seen. That is when I realized this was not just about justice anymore. It was about worth, because somewhere along the way, this country forgot how to honor its keepers, the ones who carried it through its darkest nights, and then were left to navigate the silence alone. They called us heroes when we left, but burdens when we came back, glorified in headlines, but ignored in waiting rooms. If you ever doubted a veteran's worth, do not. You do not know the half of what we carry. It is not just wounds and medals. It is names. It is voices. It is the face of a friend we could not save. The letter we never got to read. The weight of knowing we came home. And someone else did not. And still we stand. We wake up early. We fold the flag right. We cry in parking lots and hide the tears before walking into the store. We wait hours at the hospitals, not because we are patient, but because we know what waiting for life and death really looks like. We train our children to say, please and thank you, not because it is polite, but because manners saved our lives in foreign lands. And yes, we mourn. Loudly, silently, righteously, sometimes beside a grave, sometimes beside an empty chair at the dinner table, sometimes inside a mind that refuses to stop replaying the wrong day over and over. The truth is, we do not want your pity. We want your presence. We want to sit in a park without being profiled. We want to grieve without being questioned. We want to be treated like we still matter, because we do. And in every letter I opened, I saw that truth shining back at me raw and beautiful. One stood out above the rest. No name, no return address, just a wrinkled paper, barely folded, with shaky handwriting. You reminded me I still have something to fight for. That was it. No signature. But I did not need one. I pinned it to the fridge with Sarah's old butterfly magnet. It sits there next to her favorite recipe for cornbread, and a photograph of us in Savannah, 20 years younger, smiling like we had all the time in the world. I still visit her grave every Sunday. But now, I am not alone. Marcus comes. Sometimes with his mother. Sometimes with a friend. Other veterans come too, some in wheelchairs, some with canes, some in faded hats embroidered with the names of forgotten wars. We sit in silence, or we talk. We read letters aloud. We laugh about Cho Hall food and curse the Vi in the same breath. Sometimes we cry, and we always leave something behind. A flower, a dog tag, a note, a promise that no one will ever feel worthless again. Not on our watch, not in our town, not while Sarah's flag still waves. They built the bench just how I described it. Smooth stone, cool to the touch, wide enough for two. It sat right beneath the shade of the maple tree near Sarah's grave, facing the sunrise like she always loved. They etched her name on one side, mine on the other, and in between, they carved a single phrase that still takes my breath away every time I see it. Love never leaves. It just sits beside you, quietly. The morning they finished it, I came alone. No cameras. No speeches. No convoy. Just me and a cup of black coffee. The way Sarah used to make it too bitter. Too strong. But exactly what I needed. I sat down on that new bench, leaned forward with my elbows on my knees, and listened. The breeze moved through the branches like her fingers through my hair. Birds chirped somewhere behind me. Someone in the distance was raking leaves. And for a moment, the world did not hurt. I reached into my coat and pulled out her last letter, the real one, not the yellow sticky note or the ones I always recite to myself. This one was written in the hospital, on the back of a menu. The handwriting was shaky, but the message was clear. Jack, if you are reading this, it means I had to go ahead. Don't follow me too soon. Stay. Sit with the flag. Tell our stories. Remind the world that grief is not weakness, that love is not noise. It is the silence that still echoes years later. And when the world forgets, make it remember, I am not gone. Jack, I am just sitting beside you. Always. I folded the letter carefully and tucked it back into my pocket. Then I did what she asked. I sat, and as I did, people came. First Marcus. Always Marcus. He did not say anything, just gave a small nod and sat beside me. Then came the young officer who'd watched the protests from a distance. She brought her father, a vet from Desert Storm, who had not spoken in public in over a decade. They sat. Then more came. A woman who had lost her brother to suicide after his third deployment. A boy who never met his dad because he died in Ramadi. A nurse who used to hold the hands of dying soldiers and hum lullabies. And eventually, the mayor arrived, in jeans and sneakers, holding a tray of donuts from the cafe Sarah loved. They did not come to talk. They came to sit. And as the sun broke fully over the horizon, casting golden light across the cemetery lawn, I realized something I had not let myself believe in years. I was never alone. Not when I laid Sarah to rest. Not when I was thrown to the dirt. Not when I stood before the committee or watched my face flash across every news channel. Because behind every moment of pain was an army of people quiet. Watching, hurting in their own way, waiting for someone to remind them it was okay to feel, to grieve, to stand up, to sit down with someone who understood. I closed my eyes, let the breeze pass through me, and whispered aloud to no one in particular. I did what you asked. Sarah, I made them remember. And then I heard it, not with my ears, with something deeper. Something truer. You never had to make them remember, Jack. You just had to let them see you. The flag above us snapped gently in the wind. A little girl in a yellow dress placed a rose on the stone. Then saluted. The silence returned. But it was not empty anymore. It was full of love, full of memory, full of every name stitched into uniforms and hearts. And as I sat there, surrounded by the living and haunted by the beautiful weight of the lost, I smiled, because I knew the truth now. I sat alone, but I was never alone. They never rebuilt the old rules. They rewrote them. Not in some dusty manual locked in a city hall drawer, but in the hearts of the people who showed up. Every Sunday now, veterans gather at the Jack and Sarah Calhoun Memorial Gardens. No one tells them where to sit. No one asks for permission to cry. Children play near the stone bench. Teenagers read names out loud. Strangers bring fresh flowers to graves they have never known. And that little bench under the maple tree, it is always occupied by someone mourning, by someone remembering, by someone learning what honor really means. As for me, I am just an old Marine with worn boots and a full heart. But if I have learned anything from this journey, if you remember just one thing, it is this. Honor does not end when the war does. Grief is not weakness. And silence does not mean you are alone. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is not marching forward. It is sitting still and letting the world see you. You do not need a badge to be respected. You do not need permission to grieve. And you never, Ever lose your worth no matter who tries to strip it away. The strongest people are often the quietest. The most important stories are the ones no one bothers to ask about, until someone finally listens. So, be that person who listens. Sit beside someone. Let them mourn. And never forget the power of standing up by simply sitting down. If this story moved you, please subscribe to hear more true stories that deserve a voice. Share this with someone who needs to remember their worth. Leave a comment below. Who is your silent hero? Because some names may not make the history books, but they change the world anyway.